The stars looked different through the viewport of the horizon's edge. Commander Jake Morrison had been staring at them for the past hour, waiting for the alien ships to arrive. 6 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the Velran Empire. Today, they were coming to Earth's newest deep space station with promises of friendship and trade. "Sir, 3 ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel," said Lieutenant Amy Collins from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the display screens. "They're huge, much bigger than our vessels." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. This meeting could change everything for humanity. The Velrans were the first intelligent aliens humans had ever met. They claimed to represent dozens of worlds and hundreds of species. They had technology that made Earth's best science look like children playing with toys. "Tell them they're welcome to dock," Jake said. "And get Commander Peter Grant up here. I want him with me when we meet them." Peter arrived within minutes, looking nervous but excited. He was Jake's second in command and best friend. They had served together for 15 years, long before humanity had dreamed of meeting aliens. "Ready for this?" Peter asked. "Not even a little bit," Jake admitted with a small smile. "But here we go anyway." The docking took another 30 minutes. The Velran ships were so advanced that they barely needed any help from the station's computers. They simply attached themselves to the docking ports like they had done it 1,000 times before. Jake and Peter walked to the reception hall. The room had been cleaned and decorated according to Velran preferences. The lights were brighter than humans liked, and the temperature was cooler. Everything had to be perfect. When the airlock opened, Jake got his first real look at the Velrans. He had seen pictures and videos, but nothing prepared him for seeing them in person. They were tall, at least 7 feet, and their skin looked like it was made of crystal. Light seemed to move through their bodies in rainbow patterns. They wore flowing robes that shimmered with colors humans didn't have names for. The lead Velran stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Thessian Valcour," he said. The words came from a small device on his chest that translated his language into English. "We are honored to meet with humanity." "Welcome to Horizon's Edge," Jake replied. "We're grateful for this opportunity to build friendship between our peoples." Thessian made a gesture that might have been a smile. His crystal face dimmed slightly in a way that the briefing material said meant pleasure. "We have brought gifts to celebrate this occasion. Tokens of what the Velran Empire can offer to new friends." Behind Thessian, other Velrans carried boxes and containers. They placed them on tables that had been set up around the room. Jake saw what looked like technology, art pieces, and samples of materials that probably didn't exist on Earth. "You are too generous," Jake said, meaning it. Even one piece of Velran technology could advance human science by decades. "There is one more gift," Thessian said. His tone changed slightly, becoming more formal. "Something to help humanity understand the dangers that exist in the galaxy. You are young, inexperienced. You do not know what threats lurk among the stars." 4 Velran guards entered the room. They carried between them a large container surrounded by a glowing energy field. Inside the field, something moved. Jake stepped closer, curious and cautious at the same time. The thing inside was alive. It paced back and forth with smooth, powerful movements. It stood about 4 feet tall and was covered in black fur that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes glowed amber in the dimness, watching everything around it with clear intelligence. "This is a Krath hunter," Thessian announced. His voice carried pride and warning in equal measure. "It comes from a death world called Skarnix. This creature is one of the most dangerous predators known to our empire. We captured it at great cost to show you what exists beyond your safe little corner of space." The creature in the field pressed against the energy barrier, its lips pulled back, showing teeth designed for tearing meat. But something in its eyes made Jake pause. It wasn't the mindless aggression of a wild animal. There was thought there, awareness, maybe even fear. "Why show us this?" Jake asked carefully. He didn't want to insult the Velrans, but the gift made him uncomfortable. "Because you need to understand that you need protection," Thessian explained. "Your world is what we classify as a garden planet. Mild weather, plenty of food and water, few natural disasters. You evolved in safety. You cannot imagine what real danger looks like." Peter spoke up for the first time. "With respect, Ambassador, Earth has plenty of dangerous creatures. We've dealt with predators throughout our history." Several Velrans made sounds that the translator didn't bother to convert. Jake recognized mockery when he heard it, even from aliens. "Commander Grant, we have studied your world extensively," Thessian said. His tone was patient, like a teacher explaining something to a slow student. Your largest predators are at most mildly concerning. Nothing on Earth compares to the creatures that hunt on true death worlds. This krath, for example, could kill any animal from your planet with ease. The krath in the field made a sound, something between a growl and a chirp. It stared directly at Thessian with those glowing eyes. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the creature understood every word being said. We will keep the krath here as a reminder, Thessian continued, a symbol of why humanity should accept Velran protection and guidance. The galaxy is far more dangerous than you know. Species like the krath are everywhere, waiting to destroy the unprepared. Jake looked at the trapped creature again. It had stopped pacing and sat down, still watching the Velrans. There was something wrong about this whole situation. The Velrans talked about danger and protection, but they were the ones who had captured a living being and put it in a cage. Thank you for the educational opportunity, Jake said, choosing his words with care. We'll make sure the krath is properly housed and cared for. It requires minimal care, Thessian said dismissively. The stasis field keeps it docile. Feed it once every few days. Do not lower the field or it will kill everyone in the room. After the Velrans left to tour other parts of the station, Jake stood in front of the containment field. The krath watched him back. Up close, Jake could see scars under its fur. Marks that looked like they came from weapons, not from natural fights. What did they do to you? Jake whispered. The krath tilted its head, the gesture hauntingly familiar. It reminded Jake of his dog back home, the way it would look at him when trying to understand human words. Peter came to stand beside him. That thing gives me the creeps. Yeah, Jake agreed. But he wasn't sure if he meant the krath or the way the Velrans had treated it. Get Dr. Lisa Harper down here. I want our best xenobiologist to examine it. You sure that's safe? Jake kept watching the krath. It hadn't moved. Hadn't shown any aggression toward him or Peter. It just sat there, looking more sad than dangerous. I don't think we're the ones who need to worry about safety, Jake said quietly. Dr. Lisa Harper arrived at the holding bay 30 minutes after Jake called her. She carried her medical scanner and a portable computer loaded with every piece of information humanity had gathered about alien biology. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. The krath was still sitting in the same spot, surrounded by the energy field that kept it trapped. Lisa approached slowly, her scientific curiosity fighting with natural caution. The creature was beautiful in a deadly way. Its black fur looked soft despite being on something so clearly dangerous. Those amber eyes tracked her every movement with unsettling focus. Hello there, Lisa said softly. She knew it couldn't understand her words, but tone mattered with animals back on Earth. Maybe it mattered with aliens, too. I'm just going to run some scans. I won't hurt you. The krath made a small chirping sound, not aggressive, almost questioning. Lisa took it as permission and activated her scanner. The device hummed as it collected data about the creature's biological systems. What she saw made her frown. The krath's stress hormones were dangerously high. Its heart rate was elevated. There were signs of malnutrition despite the Velrans claiming it was well cared for. Worst of all, the scanner detected burn marks around its neck, hidden under the thick fur, burns that matched the pattern of shock collars. They've been hurting you, Lisa whispered. Anger flared in her chest. She had spent her whole career studying life in all its forms. The idea of causing unnecessary pain to any creature, especially one this intelligent, made her sick. She pulled up her communicator. Commander Morrison, we need to talk about the krath's living conditions. Jake arrived quickly, bringing Peter with him. Lisa showed them the scan results, pointing out each injury and sign of mistreatment. The Velran said it was dangerous, Peter argued, though he looked disturbed by the evidence. Maybe they had to use force to keep it controlled. There's a difference between necessary restraint and abuse, Lisa shot back. Look at these burns. They're recent and repeated, and the malnutrition suggests they weren't feeding it properly. This isn't about safety. This is about cruelty. Jake studied the data, then looked at the krath. The creature was watching them, head tilted in that dog-like way again. What do you recommend? First, we turn off that stasis field, Lisa said. It's causing cellular damage. Then we improve its food and environment. Better lighting, proper temperature, actual space to move around. The Velrans said not to lower the field, Peter reminded them. The Velrans aren't here, Jake replied. He made his decision. Do it, Lisa, make it comfortable. But keep security nearby just in case. Lisa worked with the station's engineers to modify the holding bay. They removed the harsh blue lights the Velrans had insisted on and replaced them with softer, warmer illumination. They expanded the living space and added platforms and hiding spots, things that a predator might appreciate. Most importantly, they deactivated the stasis field. The Krath stood up as soon as the field dropped. For a moment, everyone tensed, hands moving toward weapons. But the creature didn't attack. Instead, it stretched, working muscles that had been held rigid for too long. Then it explored its new space, sniffing at corners and testing the platforms with careful paws. "It's not trying to escape," Peter observed with surprise. "Because it knows it can't," Lisa said. "But at least now it can move freely within its space." Over the next few days, Lisa visited the Krath regularly. She brought food, better quality than the protein paste the Velrans had provided. She brought water that wasn't recycled and stale. Each time she entered the bay, the Krath would approach the transparent barrier that separated them. The creature never showed aggression toward her. Instead, it seemed curious. It would make soft chirping sounds, almost like it was trying to talk. It would mimic some of her gestures, watching her face carefully. On the fourth day, Lisa brought her lunch with her and sat down near the barrier to eat. The Krath sat down too, mirroring her posture. When Lisa took a bite of her sandwich, the Krath picked up its food and ate as well. When Lisa laughed at the coincidence, the Krath made a sound that could almost be called laughter too. "You're not just smart," Lisa said to it. "You're really smart, aren't you?" The Krath chittered and bobbed its head. Lisa ran more detailed scans over the following days. What she discovered changed everything. The Krath's brain structure was incredibly complex. The neural pathways suggested not just intelligence, but high intelligence. This wasn't a clever animal like a dolphin or an ape. This was something that might be as smart as a human being. She called Jake and Peter to see her findings. Lieutenant Kevin Price, the station's linguistics expert, joined them. They gathered around Lisa's computer screen, looking at brain scans and behavioral analysis. "Are you saying this thing is sentient?" Peter asked, his voice quiet with shock. "I'm saying it's possible," Lisa replied carefully. "Look at this area here. That's analogous to human speech centers, and these patterns suggest complex problem-solving and abstract thinking. It's been trying to communicate with me. I just haven't been able to understand it." Kevin leaned closer to the screen. "Can I work with it? Try to establish some kind of communication system?" "Yes," Jake said immediately. "If there's even a chance that this is a person and not an animal, we need to know." Kevin was good at his job. He had studied every human language and had theories about how alien communication might work. He started by showing the Krath simple symbols and watching how it responded. The creature caught on frighteningly fast. Within a week, they had established basic communication. The Krath could point to symbols that meant yes, no, food, water, pain, fear, and home. Kevin expanded the vocabulary every day, and the Krath learned every new symbol almost instantly. Lisa was there when they achieved the breakthrough. Kevin had added symbols for more complex concepts. Family, freedom, capture, wrong. The Krath looked at the new symbols for a long moment. Then deliberately it pointed to 4 symbols in sequence. Capture, wrong, home, family. "Oh God," Lisa breathed. "It's telling us it was taken from its home and family." Kevin added more symbols. Working faster now. Where, why, who. The Krath pointed again. Velrans, many, stolen. The Velrans took it, Peter said. He had been skeptical at first, but now his face showed horror. They took it from its home. Jake stood up and walked closer to the barrier. The Krath approached from its side, until they were face to face with only transparent material between them. The creature placed one paw against the barrier. Jake matched the gesture with his hand. "Can you tell us your name?" Kevin asked, though he wasn't sure how to show that concept yet. The Krath made a sound, something between a chirp and a growl. It was melodic and complex. Kevin recorded it and played it back. The Krath nodded enthusiastically. "Shadow," Lisa said suddenly. "That sound, the way it looks. I'm going to call you Shadow until we can pronounce your real name properly. Is that okay?" Shadow pointed to the yes symbol. Over the next 2 weeks, their vocabulary grew to hundreds of symbols. Shadow could express thoughts, feelings, and memories. What he told them painted a dark picture of the Velran Empire. Shadow's people, the Krath, lived on a harsh world where survival required strength and intelligence. They were hunters, yes, but they were also artists, builders, and thinkers. They had families and friends and lives that mattered. 50 cycles ago, by Shadow's time measurement, the Velrans had discovered their world. Instead of making peaceful contact, the Velrans had started capturing Krath. They took them from their homes, from their families. They displayed them as trophies and examples of the galaxy's dangers. Shadow had been taken 3 cycles ago. He had been hunting with his pack brothers when Velran ships appeared. They used weapons that paralyzed but didn't kill. Shadow woke up in a cage far from home with no way to tell anyone who he really was. How many others? Jake asked. How many Krath did they take? Shadow's answer was devastating. He didn't know exact numbers, but many. Dozens, maybe hundreds. All scattered across Velran space, all trapped and treated like dangerous animals instead of people. And it's not just your people, Lisa added, reading between the lines of what Shadow was telling them. The Velrans have been doing this to other species too. Anyone they decide is dangerous. Jake felt cold anger settling in his chest. The Velrans had come to Earth talking about friendship and protection. They had pretended to be benevolent guides for younger species. But really, they were kidnappers and slavers who hid their crimes behind words like safety and danger. What do we do? Peter asked. Jake looked at Shadow, who looked back with those intelligent, hopeful eyes. We get his people back. All of them. The meeting room on Horizon's Edge was packed with people. Jake had called in every captain, commander, and diplomat within range. They needed to act fast, but they also needed to act smart. Going against the Velran Empire wasn't something humanity could do lightly. Captain Nicole Brooks commanded the diplomatic vessel Unity. She was older than Jake, with gray streaking through her dark hair and eyes that had seen too much of politics. She listened to everything Jake told her about Shadow and the Krath, then sat back with a heavy sigh. I've been talking to other human ships that have met with Velrans, Nicole said. Every single one received a gift like yours. Captured beings from what the Velrans call death worlds. I thought it was just their culture, their way of showing off. I didn't realize we were looking at prisoners. How many? Lisa asked. She had brought Shadow's communication board to the meeting, so he could participate through the monitor link. Shadow watched everything from his quarters, which were no longer a cell but something closer to an apartment. At least 30 different species, Nicole replied. Maybe more. The Velrans have been doing this for a long time. They find worlds they consider dangerous, study the inhabitants, then capture specimens for their collections. Collections, Peter repeated bitterly. They're treating sentient beings like butterflies pinned to a board. Shadow made sounds through the monitor. Kevin had improved the translation system, and now Shadow's chirps and growls came through as synthesized English words. The voice was artificial, but the emotion behind it was real. Not just collections. Entertainment, they make us fight sometimes. For sport, the room went silent. Every human there understood what Shadow meant. It was one of humanity's own darkest chapters, forcing people and animals to fight for the amusement of crowds. They had left that cruelty behind centuries ago. Finding out the Velrans still practiced it made everyone furious. We need to expose this, said Commander Helen Garcia from the research vessel Discovery. Get evidence. Show the galaxy what the Velrans really are. That might not be enough, Jake countered. The Velrans are powerful. They could claim we're lying or that we don't understand their culture. We need to do more than expose them. We need to free the prisoners. That's an act of war, Nicole pointed out. The Velran Empire has hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers. Earth has a dozen vessels and we're barely holding together out here. Then we don't fight them head-on, Jake said. He pulled up a star chart on the main display. Shadow has been teaching us about Velran security. He knows where many of the captives are kept. We don't attack their military. We run rescue operations. Shadow's synthetic voice came through again. Velran Station Omega-7. Large collection facility. Many species held there. Security is strong but predictable. I know the systems. How do you know their security systems? Peter asked. They made me watch while they programmed, Shadow explained. Thought I was just animal. Didn't hide their work. I remember everything. Lisa smiled despite the grim situation. That's going to be their biggest mistake. The planning took 3 days. Shadow provided detailed information about Velran technology, security protocols, and station layouts. Human engineers worked around the clock to prepare equipment that could bypass Velran systems. They studied Velran language and customs, looking for weaknesses to exploit. Captain Danny Rogers from the military escort ship Defender argued for bringing more firepower. If this goes wrong, we need to be able to fight our way out. If this goes wrong, firepower won't save us, Jake replied. We need speed and stealth. Get in. Free as many prisoners as possible. Get out before the Velrans can respond in force. And then what? Nicole asked. Even if we succeed, the Velrans will come after us. They won't let this stand. Let them come, Jake said quietly. We'll have evidence by then. Freed prisoners who can testify. The Velrans have been hiding behind a mask of civilization. Once that mask comes off, other species will see them for what they really are. Shadow made a sound that the translator rendered as agreement. My people will fight. Other species will fight, not just for freedom but for justice. The final plan involved 4 human ships. The Horizon's Edge would lead, along with Unity, Defender, and a small transport called Swift Current. They would approach Velran Station Omega-7 under the pretense of a diplomatic visit. Once docked, teams would infiltrate the station and shut down the containment systems. The dangerous part was that Shadow insisted on being part of the rescue team. Jake tried to argue against it, but Shadow was firm. My people will not trust humans alone, Shadow explained. They have been hurt too much. They need to see one of their own, need to know it's safe. I must go. Lisa supported Shadow's argument. He's right. And besides, he knows the station layout better than any of us. He's been in these facilities. He understands how the Velrans think. Fine, Jake agreed reluctantly. But you stay close to me. If shooting starts, you get behind cover. If shooting starts, you get behind me, Shadow countered. Humans are soft. I am Hunter. Peter laughed despite his nerves. He's got a point. The journey to Velran Station Omega-7 took 5 days. During that time, Shadow taught the rescue team everything he could about Krath biology and behavior. How to approach them without triggering fear or aggression. What sounds meant danger versus safety. How to tell if a Krath was injured beyond what was visible. Your people are pack hunters, right? Lisa asked during one session. Like wolves back on Earth? Yes, Shadow confirmed. Pack is everything. Pack is family, is safety, is purpose. When Velrans took me from my pack, they took my life. Being alone is worse than being caged. That statement hit Jake hard. Shadow had been alone for 3 cycles, surrounded by aliens who didn't even recognize him as a person. The psychological damage from that kind of isolation must be enormous. Yet Shadow had somehow held on to hope, held on to himself. You won't be alone anymore, Jake promised. Whatever happens at that station, you'll have your pack back. When they finally arrived at Velran Station Omega-7, Jake's heart was pounding. The station was massive, easily 10 times the size of Horizon's Edge. Ships came and went constantly, making it one of the busiest Velran facilities in this sector. Horizon's Edge. This is Omega-7 Control, came the translated Velran voice. State your purpose. This is Commander Jake Morrison requesting permission to dock, Jake replied, keeping his voice calm and professional. We're following up on cultural exchange protocols established by Ambassador Thessian Valker. There was a pause. Jake could imagine Velran officials checking records, confirming that humanity was indeed a new species under their protection program. Finally, permission came through. You may dock at Port 17. Welcome to Omega-7. The docking procedure was tense. Every member of the crew knew what they were about to attempt. If the Velrans discovered the plan too early, none of them would leave the station alive. Shadow was fitted with human clothing that hid his distinctive appearance. A long coat, gloves, and a helmet with a darkened face shield. From a distance, he could pass as a human in protective gear. Up close, the disguise wouldn't hold, but they hoped not to get that close to any Velrans. Team leaders. Check in, Jake said over the communication system. Team 1 ready, replied Peter. He would lead the group heading to the main containment area. Team 2 ready, said Lieutenant Carl Jensen from Defender. His group would handle the station's security systems. Team 3 ready, Lisa confirmed. She was leading the medical team that would handle injured prisoners. Team 4 with you. Commander, said Lieutenant Katie Mills. She and 5 others would stay with Jake and Shadow as they navigated to the high-security cells where the most dangerous prisoners were supposedly kept. They left their ships and entered the station. The interior was bright and cold, just like Velran ships. Crystalline walls refracted light in dizzying patterns. Other species moved through the corridors, but Jake noticed they all had the same nervous energy. People who lived under occupation learned to look like that. Shadow walked beside Jake, his posture stiff with tension. Being back in a Velrun facility must be bringing up terrible memories. Jake wished he could offer comfort, but there was no time. They had to move quickly. Security hub is 2 corridors ahead, whispered Carl over the comm system. We're in position. Medical staging area secured, Lisa added. Ready to receive patients. Jake and his team reached a large blast door marked with Velrun symbols. Shadow read them aloud. High security containment. Dangerous specimens. Authorized personnel only. Can you open it? Jake asked. Shadow approached a control panel and studied it. His hands moved across the symbols with confidence. Velruns use same security codes everywhere. Arrogant. Think no one else is smart enough to learn. The door opened with a hiss. Beyond it lay a nightmare. The high security containment area was worse than anything Jake had imagined. Rows of cells stretched in every direction, each one holding a living being behind energy barriers. The prisoners came in all shapes and sizes. Some looked reptilian, others were covered in fur or scales or features Jake had no names for. All of them looked thin, scared, and defeated. Shadow froze in the doorway. His whole body went rigid and he made a sound Jake had never heard before. A keening wail that spoke of pain deeper than physical injury. Shadow? Jake put a hand on his friend's shoulder. Are you okay? My pack, Shadow whispered. His synthetic voice couldn't capture the emotion, but Jake heard it anyway. I smell my pack. They're here. Katie Mills and her team spread out, weapons ready but pointed down. They weren't here to fight unless forced to. The goal was rescue, not combat. Jake followed Shadow deeper into the containment area. Many of the prisoners pressed against their barriers when they saw humans approaching. Some made sounds that might have been pleas or questions. Others simply stared with hopeless eyes that had seen too much cruelty. Shadow stopped at a cell and placed both paws against the barrier. Inside, another Krath lifted its head slowly. This one was smaller than Shadow, with lighter colored fur and visible injuries. When it saw Shadow, it lurched to its feet and pressed against the barrier from the other side. Pack brother, Shadow said, not through the translator but in his own language. The sound was beautiful and heartbreaking. We need to move fast, Jake said gently. Can you teach my people how to open these cells? Shadow pulled himself away from his packmate's cell and showed Katie's team how the barriers worked. The controls were simple once you understood them. The Velruns had never imagined anyone would dare attempt a rescue. Carl, how are we doing on security? Jake spoke into his communicator. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they notice something's wrong, Carl replied. His voice was tense. Their systems are more redundant than Shadow thought. I'm working on it, but I can't promise more than 10 minutes. Make it 15 and I'll buy you a drink, Jake said. You'll buy me a whole bottle at this rate. Katie and her team started opening cells. The moment the first barrier dropped, Shadow rushed into his packmate. The two Krath embraced, making those melodic sounds that passed for speech among their kind. Shadow checked his packmate for injuries, gently touching scars and wounds. Jake moved to the next cell. Inside was a creature that looked like it was made of living stone, with eyes that glowed like embers. When the barrier dropped, it stepped out cautiously, clearly expecting a trap. We're here to help, Jake said, knowing the universal translator on his belt would convey the meaning if not the exact words. We're taking you away from here. The stone creature studied him for a long moment, then nodded. It had understood. Cell after cell opened. Prisoners emerged, confused and frightened but also hopeful. Katie directed them toward the exit where Lisa's medical team waited. Some of the freed prisoners could barely walk. Others were so weak they had to be carried. Shadow and his packmate helped, supporting their fellow prisoners with surprising gentleness. Commander, we have a problem, Katie said. She was standing in front of a cell that hadn't opened. Inside, a Krath paced frantically. This one was larger than Shadow, with darker fur and scars that covered its entire body. Shadow approached and made sounds in Krath language. The imprisoned one responded, voice hoarse and desperate. This is my pack leader, Shadow explained. Cell is special security. Different system. He has been here longest. They heard him most. Jake examined the control panel. It was definitely more complex than the others. Carl, we need you down here. Got a lock we can't crack. On my way. But Commander, security just went active. They know something's happening. Alarms started blaring throughout the station. The lights shifted from white to red. Automated announcements in Velrun language echoed through the corridors. Time's up, Jake said. Katie, get everyone you can to the medical staging area. Shadow, you go with them. No, Shadow replied firmly. Not leaving without pack leader. Shadow, we might not be able to open that cell. I won't let you stay here and get captured again. Then we both stay or both go. Shadow's amber eyes were fierce. Pack is everything. Pack leader stayed strong for us. I will not leave him. Jake wanted to argue, but there was no time. Peter's voice came over the communicator, urgent and loud. We've got Velran security teams heading your way. Multiple contacts, heavily armed. How long do we have? 3 minutes, maybe less. Carl arrived, running hard and breathing heavy. He took one look at the special cell and started working. His fingers flew over the control panel, trying combinations and bypasses. Sweat dripped down his face despite the cold air. The Krath pack leader watched them work. He had stopped pacing and now stood still, dignified even in captivity. He spoke to Shadow in their language. He says go, Shadow translated. Says save the others. Says he is already dead. Tell him we don't leave people behind, Jake said. That's not how humans do things, Shadow translated. The pack leader's eyes widened slightly. He looked at Jake with new interest. 30 seconds, Carl said. I almost have it. Gunfire erupted somewhere in the station. Not near them yet, but close enough to hear. Peter's team was holding off the Velran security forces, buying them time. But that time was running out fast. Got it, Carl shouted. The special barrier flickered and died. The pack leader stepped out of his cell. He was enormous up close, easily 7 feet tall even on all fours. Battle scars covered his body like a map of suffering. But he held himself with dignity, like a king who had been temporarily detained. Shadow and his pack leader embraced. The big Krath made a rumbling sound that might have been a purr. Then he straightened up and looked at Jake. When he spoke, the meaning was clear even before Shadow translated. He says thank you. He says humans are good pack. He says we fight now. Tell him we run now, fight later if we must, Jake replied. They moved fast through the corridors. The pack leader was weak from captivity, but he kept up through sheer determination. They met up with Peter's team at a junction. Peter's people had their weapons out but hadn't fired yet. Velrans are sealing the station, Peter reported. They're going to trap us here. Not if we move faster than they can seal, Jake said. He opened the communication to all teams. Everyone converge on the medical staging area now. Swift current. Prepare for emergency departure. They ran through corridors filled with alarms and flashing lights. Freed prisoners moved as fast as they could, helping each other when someone stumbled. The Krath pack stayed together with Shadow and his pack leader bringing up the rear. Their predatory instincts made them natural guardians. Velran security teams appeared at an intersection ahead. They raised weapons, crystalline rifles that hummed with deadly energy. Jake and his people took cover, preparing to fight their way through. But the Krath pack leader moved first. He charged forward with shocking speed, his weakness forgotten in the moment of action. The Velrans fired, but their shots went wide, surprised by the sudden assault. The pack leader struck like a force of nature, disarming guards and knocking them aside. He didn't kill anyone, Jake noticed. For all his power and clear anger, the pack leader only disabled his opponents. Shadow and the other freed Krath followed their leader's example. They moved like liquid darkness, faster than the Velrans could track. Their movements were coordinated, precise. This was what the Velrans had feared about the Krath. Not mindless violence, but skilled, intelligent combat. The corridor cleared in seconds. The Velran guards were alive but unconscious or too injured to fight. The Krath pack reformed around Jake and his people, protecting them. That's why they caged you, Jake said to Shadow as they ran. Not because you're violent, but because you're better at it than they are. Krath are hunters, Shadow replied. Best hunters hunt smart, not angry. We could kill. Choose not to. That is mercy. They reached the medical staging area where Lisa had organized the freed prisoners into groups. Some were already being moved onto swift current. The small transport ship was packed beyond capacity, but nobody complained. All teams, status report, Jake called. Team 1 aboard Defender, Peter replied. We're clear. Team 2 on Unity, said Nicole. Ready to depart. Team 3 loading final patients onto swift current, Lisa added. We need 2 more minutes. We might not have 2 minutes, Jake said. More Velran security forces were converging on their position. The station's automated defenses were coming online. Gun turrets descended from the ceiling, targeting systems tracking movement. The Krath pack leader barked orders in his own language. The freed Krath spread out, taking defensive positions. Other freed prisoners who could fight joined them. They formed a living shield between the escape route and the approaching Velrans. "You've taught them well," Jake said to Shadow. "They teach me," Shadow corrected. "This is what pack means. We protect together." The last prisoners boarded Swift Current. Lisa waved from the boarding ramp. "We're full. Let's go." But Velran forces had reached the docking bay. Dozens of guards poured in, weapons charged and ready. They had superior numbers in position. Getting to the ships would mean running through a killing field. Jake's hand moved to his weapon. They had tried to do this without violence, but if the Velrans forced, the docking bay fell into tense silence. Velran security forces blocked the path to the ships. Jake's team and the freed prisoners were trapped between the guards and the corridor they had just escaped from. More Velrans would be coming from that direction any moment. The lead Velran guard stepped forward. His crystalline armor was more ornate than the others, marking him as an officer. When he spoke, the translator made his words cold and precise. "You have stolen Velran property. Release the specimens and surrender. You will be detained but not harmed." "They're not property," Jake replied, his voice carrying across the bay. "They're people, and we're not surrendering." "Then you will die here," the officer stated simply. "We have sufficient force to eliminate you. Your primitive weapons cannot match Velran technology." Shadow stepped forward to stand beside Jake. He had removed his helmet, revealing his Krath features. The Velran guard shifted nervously at the sight. Even armed and armored, they feared him. "You cage us because you are afraid," Shadow said in his own voice, letting the translator handle the conversion. "Afraid we will show Galaxy what you really are. Not protectors, thieves, cowards." The pack leader joined Shadow, his massive form radiating power despite his injuries. One by one, the other freed Krath moved up to form a line. They were thin, scarred, barely recovered from captivity. But they stood tall and proud, facing their captors without fear. Other freed prisoners joined them. The stone creature who had been in the first cell. A being with scales like mirrors. Something that looked like living water held in a flexible membrane. Dozens of species, all of them supposedly too dangerous for civilized contact. All of them standing together. "Last chance," the Velran officer said. His confidence was wavering. This wasn't how captures usually went. "No," Jake replied. "Last chance is yours. Let us leave peacefully or we'll fight our way out. And if we fight, the whole galaxy will know what happened here. They'll know you keep sentient beings in cages. They'll know you're slavers hiding behind fancy words. You have no evidence. Your word against the Velran Empire." Lisa spoke up from the boarding ramp of Swift Current. "We have dozens of freed prisoners. We have medical records of torture and abuse. We have Shadow's testimony and the testimony of every being you've hurt. The evidence will bury you." The Velran officer raised his weapon. His guards did the same. Energy rifles hummed as they charged up. "Then we ensure no evidence leaves this station." The pack leader made a sound low in his chest. Every Krath tensed, ready to charge. The other freed prisoners prepared to fight. Jake's people checked their weapons. Everyone knew this was about to turn bloody. Then Shadow did something unexpected. He started to sing. It wasn't like human singing. The sound was deeper, more complex, with harmonics that human throats couldn't produce. But it was unmistakably music. Haunting and beautiful, it echoed through the docking bay. One by one, the other Krath joined the song. Their voices blended together in harmony that sent chills down Jake's spine. The pack leader's bass rumble provided foundation while Shadow's voice soared above, clear and strong. The Velran guards looked confused. This wasn't threatening behavior. It wasn't attack or surrender. It was something they didn't have protocols for. "What are they doing?" the officer demanded. "It's a death song," said a quiet voice. Everyone turned. One of the freed prisoners had spoken. A small creature with too many eyes and delicate-looking limbs. "My people know of the Krath. When they sing this song, it means they are ready to die. But they will die free, not caged." The song grew louder. Other species added their own voices, creating something that transcended language. It was defiance and sorrow and hope all woven together. It said, "We were people before you caged us. We are people now. And we will be people when this is done, whether we live or die." Jake found himself humming along, adding his human voice to the alien chorus. Katie and Carl and the others joined in. The sound swelled until the docking bay rang with it. The Velran officer's rifle wavered. His crystalline face flickered with patterns that might have been uncertainty. Around him, his guards were backing away step by step. Some had lowered their weapons entirely. "What are you waiting for?" the officer shouted at his troops. "Fire!" None of them did. They stood frozen, unable to shoot at beings who were singing. Maybe it was the beauty of the sound. Maybe it was seeing so many species united. Or maybe, somewhere deep in their crystalline hearts, the Velrans recognized the song for what it was. A declaration of personhood, a claim to dignity that couldn't be denied. "I said fire." The officer's voice cracked. "No," said one of the guards. She lowered her rifle completely and stepped back. "This is wrong. This has always been wrong." Other guards followed her example. Some left the bay entirely. Others stayed but refused to raise their weapons. Within moments, only the officer and a handful of loyal guards remained ready to fight. The officer looked around at his diminished force, at the singing prisoners, at the humans who stood with them. His crystalline features flickered through patterns that suggested anger, fear, and something that might have been shame. "This isn't over," he said finally. "The Empire will come for you. All of you, let them come," Jake replied. "We'll be ready." The officer and his remaining guards retreated. The song continued as Jake's people and the freed prisoners boarded their ships. Shadow kept singing until everyone was safely aboard, his voice never faltering. When the last person was on a ship, the song ended. The silence that followed felt heavy and meaningful. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake spoke into the communication system. "Plot fastest course away from this station. Stay together but be ready to scatter if necessary." The 4 human ships undocked and pulled away from Velran Station Omega-7. Alarms were still blaring on the station, but no one pursued them. The Velran forces were in disarray, dealing with the aftermath of what had happened. As soon as they were clear, Jake collapsed into his command chair. The adrenaline was wearing off and exhaustion hit him like a physical weight. Peter came to stand beside him. "We did it," Peter said, sounding amazed. "We actually did it. We did the easy part," Jake replied. "Now comes the hard part. Dealing with the consequences." Shadow approached them, walking on 2 legs now that he wasn't pretending to be human. His pack leader walked beside him, along with several other Krath. "My pack leader wishes to speak," Shadow said. He had reclaimed his translator device and wore it proudly. Through me, his words. The pack leader spoke in the Krath language. Shadow translated in real time. "He says humans have honor. Humans see persons where others see monsters. His pack owes life debt to your pack. Krath do not forget debts." "No debt necessary," Jake said. "We did what was right." "Right is debt," the pack leader replied through Shadow. "Doing right when it costs nothing is easy. Doing right when it costs everything is honor. Humans showed honor. Krath respect honor." Lisa called from the medical bay. "Commander, you should see this." Jake made his way through the ship. Freed prisoners filled every available space. They sat in corridors and storage rooms anywhere there was room. The medical bay was packed with the most seriously injured. Lisa pulled Jake aside and showed him her medical reports. "Half of these people have injuries from shock collars and restraints. A third show signs of malnutrition. Almost all of them have psychological trauma. The Velrans weren't just keeping them. They were systematically breaking them. Can you help them?" "Physically, yes." "Emotionally?" Lisa shook her head. "That will take time, and they'll need more than medical care. They'll need homes, families, purposes. We can't just heal them and drop them off somewhere." Jake knew she was right. They had freed these prisoners, but freedom wasn't enough. They needed to rebuild lives that the Velrans had destroyed. "We'll figure it out," Jake promised. "One step at a time." Captain Nicole's face appeared on a communication screen. She was calling from Unity. "Commander Morrison, I've been in contact with Earth. They want to know what we've done and why we're about to start an interstellar incident. Tell them we found evidence of slavery and acted to stop it," Jake replied. "Tell them we have witnesses and victims who can testify. Tell them humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers." "I'll tell them," Nicole said. "But Jake, the Velran Empire has resources we can't match. If they decide to retaliate, Earth could be in real danger." "Then Earth will fight," Jake said simply. "We've faced extinction threats before. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We'll survive this too." After the call ended, Shadow found Jake on the observation deck. The Krath stood beside him looking out at the stars. "You risk much for us," Shadow said. "Risk your world, why?" Jake thought about the question. Why had humanity risked everything to free prisoners from a powerful empire? The simple answer was that it was the right thing to do. But there was more to it than that. "Because we're predators too," Jake said finally. Earth isn't the garden world the Velrans think it is. We evolved alongside some of the most efficient hunters in the galaxy. We competed with them, learned from them. Some of them, we made into companions. We understand what it means to be strong and dangerous, and we understand that strength without mercy is just cruelty. Shadow tilted his head in that familiar gesture. You see us, not as monsters, as mirrors, maybe, Jake admitted. We look at you and see ourselves. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, the freed prisoners slowly recovered from their ordeal. Lisa and her medical team worked around the clock, treating injuries and providing whatever comfort they could. But the real healing came from something simpler than medicine. Shadow's pack had reunited. The Krath moved through the ship together, never straying far from each other. They groomed each other's fur, shared food, and slept in piles like wolf packs back on Earth. The pack leader, whose name in Krath language translated roughly to Stone Wind, watched over them all with patient care. Jake often found Shadow teaching other crew members about Krath culture. The humans were fascinated, asking endless questions that Shadow answered with growing confidence. He was no longer the scared, isolated prisoner they had first met. He was becoming himself again. Krath live in family groups of 20 to 50 individuals, Shadow explained to a group gathered in the common area. Each pack has territory, but packs cooperate for large hunts. We are competitive but not cruel. Strong pack helps weak pack because next season roles might reverse. Sounds familiar, Katie said with a smile. Humans do something similar. We call it civilization. Yes, Shadow agreed. Velrans call us savages. But savages do not build cities or teach young or care for old. Velrans use word savage to mean different, to mean other, to mean less. Stonewind spoke in Krath language. Shadow translated. Pack leader says Velrans fear difference. They find security in sameness. Other species threaten their view of galaxy. So they collect us, control us, convince themselves we are dangerous things instead of dangerous people. That's going to change, Jake promised. We have evidence now. We have testimony. The galaxy will have to listen. But Jake's confidence was tested when they received a transmission from Velran space. Ambassador Thessian Valkyr himself appeared on the screen, his crystalline features showing clear anger. Commander Morrison, you have committed an act of war against the Velran Empire, Thessian said without preamble. You invaded our territory, destroyed our property, and killed our citizens. We freed prisoners and injured no one fatally, Jake countered. Your own security forces chose not to fight us. Maybe that should tell you something. It tells me that weak individuals failed in their duty. The Empire as a whole will not be so weak. Return the specimens immediately or face consequences. They're not specimens, Jake replied, keeping his voice calm despite his anger. They're people, sentient beings with rights, and we're not returning them to captivity. Then you doom your species, Thessian stated coldly. Earth is small, weak, alone. The Velran Empire encompasses hundreds of worlds. We will crush you and take back what is ours. Shadow stepped into view of the communication screen. Thessian's crystalline surface flickered with surprise and what might have been fear. You will try, Shadow said simply. You will fail. Not because humans are strong alone. Because humans make pacts with others. You taught me to hate. Humans taught me to hope. Galaxy will choose hope. The transmission ended abruptly. Thessian had nothing more to say, or perhaps he was too angry to continue. Jake turned to Shadow and saw determination in those amber eyes. He will come, Shadow said. With ships and weapons. We'll make example of Earth. Let him try, Jake replied. We're not the primitives they think we are, and we won't be alone. That prediction proved true faster than anyone expected. As the human ships approached Earth, they received messages from dozens of different sources. Other species had learned what happened at Velran Station Omega-7. Some messages were cautious inquiries. Others were offers of support. A species called the Torvan, who looked like living crystal but were completely different from Velrans, sent ships to escort the humans home. They had lost members to Velran collectors and wanted to help. The Scarix, a reptilian species from a heavy gravity world, offered military alliance. They too had been labeled dangerous and had narrowly avoided Velran attention. They saw humanity's actions as a declaration that someone was finally standing up to the Empire. Even some Velran colonies sent secret messages of support. Not all Velrans agreed with their Empire's policies. Some had been quietly opposed for cycles but had no power to change things. Humanity's dramatic rescue had given them hope that change was possible. Earth's response to the returning ships was complicated. Relief that everyone was safe mixed with fear of what was coming. The freed prisoners were brought to a special quarantine facility, not because anyone thought they were dangerous, but to give them time to adjust and receive proper care. Shadow and his pack stayed on the horizon's edge. They had bonded with the human crew and weren't ready to separate yet. Stonewind requested a meeting with Earth's leaders, speaking through Shadow's translation. "My pack leader wishes to offer Krath knowledge to Earth," Shadow explained during a video conference with several human officials. "We know Velran technology because we studied them while they thought us ignorant. We know their military tactics because they tested weapons on us. We know their weaknesses because we survived their strength." One of the officials, a woman named Rachel Hayes, leaned forward with interest. "You're offering an alliance?" "More than alliance," Stonewind replied through Shadow. "Pack bond. Humans freed us. Humans gave dignity back. Krath teach humans to fight like hunters. Humans teach Krath to build like humans. Together, both stronger." The alliance was formalized within days. Other freed species made similar offers. The Torvins shared their crystal technology. The Scarix explained their military strategies. Dozens of species that the Velrans had labeled dangerous came forward, ready to stand with humanity. When the Velran fleet arrived at Earth 3 weeks later, they found something unexpected. Earth wasn't alone and defenseless. Ships from 20 different species surrounded the human homeworld. The Velrans had expected to intimidate a frightened primitive species. Instead, they found a coalition. Thessian opened communications, clearly thrown off balance. "Commander Morrison, what is this?" "This is what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness," Jake replied. He was on the bridge of the horizon's edge with Shadow and Stonewind beside him. "You spent centuries telling the galaxy that certain species were too dangerous for contact. You were right about the dangerous part. You were just wrong about who we were dangerous to." "You cannot win a war against the Velran Empire," Thessian insisted, though he sounded less certain than before. "We don't want war," Jake said. "We want justice. Free all the prisoners you're holding. Stop capturing sentient beings. Recognize that strength doesn't give you the right to oppress others. Do that and there's no war. And if we refuse?" Shadow spoke up. "Then you learn what apex predators do when you threaten their pack. You learn that teeth and claws are not just for hunting. You learn that mercy is choice, not weakness. And you learn that we can stop choosing mercy." The Velran fleet held position for 3 days. During that time, messages flew back and forth between Thessian and the Velran homeworld. The Empire was debating what to do. Some wanted to attack despite the odds. Others argued for negotiation. A few even suggested that maybe the Empire had been wrong all along. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A Velran ship broke formation and approached Earth alone. Its captain requested permission to speak to the coalition leadership. Her name was Crystallus Varthen, and she was younger than Thessian, with patterns of light flowing through her crystalline body that suggested nervousness. When she appeared on screen, she looked at Shadow and the other freed prisoners who had joined the meeting. "I am sorry," Crystallus said simply, "for what was done to you, for what my people have done for so long. Not all Velrans agree with the Empire's actions. Some of us have protested quietly for cycles. Your courage has given us the strength to protest loudly." "Why should we believe you?" Stonewind asked through Shadow. "Because I brought evidence," Crystallus replied. She transmitted files, massive amounts of data. "These are records of every being the Velran Empire has ever captured. Names, species, locations. Everything needed to find them all and free them all. I stole this from the Central Archives. My career is over. I may be executed for treason, but if it helps end this practice, it is worth it." Lisa reviewed the files with growing excitement. "Commander, this is incredible. There are thousands of individuals listed here. Dozens of species we've never heard of, and locations for at least 50 collection facilities across Velran space. This is a gift beyond measure," Stonewind said. "This Velran shows honor." Krath accepted her apology. Other freed species agreed. Crystallus had risked everything to help them. That kind of courage deserved recognition. The Coalition sent a message to the Velran fleet. "We have the information we need to free every prisoner you're holding. You can help us do it peacefully or we'll do it by force. Either way, it's happening. Choose." The Velran Empire chose negotiation. It took months of talks, but eventually an agreement was reached. The Velrans would release all captured individuals and stop their collection practices. In exchange, the coalition would help the Empire transition to legitimate trade and cooperation with other species. It wasn't perfect. Some Velrans still believed they had been right to capture dangerous species. Some freed prisoners struggled to adjust to freedom after cycles of